5 smart content marketing tips every small business owner should be using in 2025. So, first, are you spending hours creating content but barely seeing results? I feel like that's a cliche that we can all relate to. And if I know you, I know you're probably juggling Instagram, blog posts, emails, maybe even Pinterest or YouTube yourself, and it feels like nothing is working. If that is you, I'm Kara, content marketing strategist who does done for you blogging and Pinterest for other small business owners and creative entrepreneurs. And I'm really, really excited for this topic because I think content marketing is one of the most effective ways to market your business. And sometimes it's just like little tweaks that can actually make a big difference in your overall strategy. So let's get into it. So, tip number one, and do not shut me off when I say this because I'm going to go deeper with it, is just like know your audience. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times people say things are just like quote unquote not working. And it's because they don't see those like incredibly high numbers that I feel like we're used to seeing in the online space. But the reality is, as a small business owner, you don't need a million impressions. You don't need thousands of people heading to your website every month, right? You only need the right people. When you're successfully targeting the right people, the number you need is actually a lot smaller. So if I could like shout one thing from the rooftops, it would be that. This is especially important when you're doing something like keyword research for SEO. I feel like a lot of times we like write off these more specific keywords because we're like, it's not enough people. And the reality is, most of the time, it is more than enough people. So when I say know your audience, I mean like get laser clear, not on their coffee order, but like what they're looking for a solution for. And what you provide, what they're looking for might not be exactly what you offer, even though you know what they need. So, how can you position it in a way where it looks like you're giving them what they want, or at least you're educating them on what they want? So, as much as possible, you're going to want to use their own words, parroted back to them. I know we hear this a lot, but I really think it's important when we think like sometimes in the online space, especially, we do really specific things, right? Like we're storytelling strategists, we're client experience strategists, we're system specialists, for example. It's like, yes, but there's not a lot of people searching for these specific things. What they are looking for is how to set up my CRM, or people keep ghosting me. What do I do? Or I feel like my marketing isn't as effective as what I should. Like, these are the things that people are searching, and we have to position like, oh, you need a better XYZ strategist. You need a client experience specialist or whatever it is. And that is actually going to solve these problems that you know exist, even if you think that your client experience is 10 out of 10 no notes. That's my first tip. So, tip number two is another obvious one, but hear me out. And that is just to create valuable, actionable content. So, I personally think that most of the time, your free content can never give away too much, especially if you're a service provider. Okay. So when you are a coach, I feel like it can get a little dicey here. But like for me, I could literally teach you how to blog. I would be happy to like spill the beans on everything I do to blog, everything I do to manage my clients' Pinterest. And the people that were going to hire me wouldn't be affected by that because they don't want to do it themselves. Chances are, if you're a website designer, you're a brand photographer, you're something else like that, like you can never give away enough information that people aren't going to want to hire you. So keep that in mind. And then when you are applying this to content marketing tips, I would say solve one specific problem per piece of content, approach it from different angles, and think of it as like people view their problem. Like most of us have the same problems, right? Like we don't have enough time. We want more money. We whatever, like are tired of not hitting our goals. Like whatever the things are, they really fall into like a few very general buckets. So just approaching it from different angles on what your people are saying is really important. And then in every piece of content, this is so important. People are not just looking for information. So even though it can feel like when they're heading to Google and they're like looking for your blog post, it can feel like they're just looking for information. But the reality is, you just want to give them a quick win. So something they can implement immediately. And that is what's going to be the difference between you and AI, right? We're all wondering what's going to happen with content marketing in the age of AI. And the reality is, people don't just want information, they want like a pathway. And only a human can really help them with that at this time, anyway. So I feel like that is a whole thing in itself. You want your content to empower them to take the next step. Most of the time, that's going to be to hire you. So tip number 3 is just to be consistent without burning out, which is the hardest thing as a small business owner and on these like more long-term search-driven platforms. As somebody who specializes in search-driven marketing, I relate to this deeply, right? So I usually tell most of my clients it takes about 6 to 12 months to see results, which feels like crazy when they're paying me money and they're like, "Oh, I see my numbers going up, but I haven't made more sales," right? Like it can take a while because before you're on page 1 of Google, you have to be on page 5 and you have to be on page 7 and you have to be on page 20. Like these steps take time, but you're probably not going to make money until you're on page 1, right? So think of it like that. So, a couple ideas on how to stay consistent without losing your mind. One, pick a frequency you can actually stick to. So, whether that's weekly or bi-weekly, that's kind of like ideal, honestly. When you get to like a monthly or every second month, it can take just like even longer. Like, I'm already saying at these frequencies, it takes 6 to 12 months. If you're blogging once a month, it could easily take you a year to like really move the needle. So, try not to do that. And then again, if you can batch your content. So, record 2 podcast episodes in one sitting, write 3 captions in 30 minutes, like whatever you need to do. The other tip I would give you is just to use a content calendar, which sounds so like, you know, I feel like having a calendar though is so underrated where you can like see the content that you're dropping. And then it also like reminds you of how to repurpose, which I have another video on my summer marketing plan where I talk about a little bit more about how I repurpose videos. So I'll definitely link that in the description box. And yeah, tip number 4, that brings me to tip number 4, which is repurpose your content. So again, the longer you're in business, the more you don't really need more content. You just need more mileage from the content that you're already creating. Here's how to repurpose smartly. So I have a couple tips. You can turn one blog post into a carousel for Instagram, a 60-second reel, a short email newsletter, a script for a YouTube video like this one. The options are really endless. And I would challenge you to ask ChatGPT, like, how else can I get more out of this content? Like the content that I've planned, that I've put time in, that I put my makeup on, I've showed up, I, put on my fancy shirt, whatever, for that content, like how can I make this go further? Like sometimes just having like an unbiased robotic opinion, I guess, can like help you see things that you're missing. So I feel like the goal is always like one idea could be easily 5 outputs. So I think that's one of my best content marketing tips, honestly. And I know that some of this is like, you've already heard this before. You already know this. It's just like execution that needs to happen. And hopefully this video helps you do that. And then my last content marketing tip is just to track what's working and ditch what's not. So while I think that you can just like throw spaghetti at the wall and you will eventually see results if you throw enough spaghetti, that is not the best strategy, obviously. So when I think about what to track, okay, so first of all, if a client has like 3 or 4 different topics on their blog, but they're really seeing traction on one, I'm not going to post about the other 3 to like, try and even it out. I'm going to like go all in on the one that is gaining traction until I feel like it's maximized. And then kind of, and like maybe I'll work some of these in, but for the most part, my focus is going to be there until I feel like we've really like had that down. And then I'll like bring some of these into the fold, but usually tying down to like what is already working. And when it comes down to what to track, I like to look at like the impressions I'm getting and the number of clicks that I'm getting in my Google Search Console. That's how you kind of check for like your SEO, I guess. If you don't have an SEO tool, Google Search Console is free and it's great. You can track how many times you're getting seen on Google, how many times you're getting clicked from Google, which is really cool. I also love Google Search Console, how you can see like what keywords you're being found for and kind of the click rate on those. So that is what I look for when I see what kind of content's performing. From an analytical point of view, as a small business owner, I'm also asking clients, like, were you listening to my podcast before you hired me? Was there a piece of content that like stuck out to you? Where did you find me? Those kind of things, which are a little bit less like they get murky, especially now that we have longer buyer journeys. That's just the reality, right? Chances are you don't find me on a podcast and inquire the next day. You might find me on a blog post and then listen to the podcast and then follow me on Instagram and then sign up for my email list and then finally inquire. And then I'm like, so how did you hear about me today? And you're like, I think I was on your Instagram or whatever. It's like not necessarily a perfect system, and we have to be aware of that. But these are kind of some of the things to pay attention to. So, final thoughts is just know your audience, create content that solves real problems that your ideal clients are looking for. And I would also add, like, remind them how you can solve their problem versus just like teach them how, because there are a lot of informational blogs out there and people will think you're one of them unless you clearly say, like, I'm a business that can help you with this. 3, show up consistently. 4, repurpose everything. And 5, track results and make strategic changes. And what I would add to this, because I'm like forever thinking of one more tip, is I would do this quarterly, not every week or anything like that. So anyway, I hope this helped. If it did, please hit like and subscribe. I drop new marketing content every single week. So thank you.